Buongiorno. This is a video on how to count atoms, and you should watch this video before you watch the video on how to balance chemical reactions or equations. This is an important skill to know. So let's get started. So here we have our first chemical we're going to look at. It's copper 2 chlorate, and there's a few things that you have to keep in mind. First thing are these subscripts, and she's going to change my color here. So subscripts are these little numbers to the right of the element. So for example, you see a 3 to the right of oxygen, and if you don't see anything, that means 1. So nothing here means 1 and 1. So the subscripts tells you how many atoms of that element you have. So let's start with the subscripts first. So for example, we have 1 copper, 1 chlorine, and 3 oxygen. Now, this is copper 2 chlorate, so there would be another number out here, because copper 2 chlorate, remember crossover rule, this is +2, chlorate is -1, so we need 2 chlorates. So this is we see another subscript here outside the bracket, and that means that everything in the bracket is multiplied by 2. So now we have to multiply chlorine and oxygen by 2. Now the other thing you might see in an equation is a coefficient, and that would be a number in front. So imagine there's a number in front like 2. So what does that mean? Well, 2 means that we have 2 of everything to the right of that compound. So we have to multiply now everything by 2 more. So that would be 2, 2, and times 2. So how many do we have then? If we have 2 molecules of copper 2 chlorate, well, we would have 2 copper, we would have 4 chlorine, and we would have 12 oxygen atoms. Now, let's take a look at another example. Okay, let's take a look at aluminum hydroxide. So again, there's no subscript for aluminum, so that means 1. There's nothing for oxygen, so that means 1. Nothing for hydrogen, that means 1. And we have 3 outside the bracket for O and H, so we multiply everything in the bracket by 3. So that means we have 1 aluminum, 3 oxygen, and 3 hydrogen atoms. Okay. Now, if there was a coefficient in front, right now there is, but let's imagine there was a coefficient 3 in front, then we'd have to multiply everything by 3. So that would be now 3 aluminum, 9 oxygen, and 9 hydrogen. Okay. All right, let's look at the next example. The next example is potassium phosphate. So we see that potassium has a subscript of 3, so that means it's 3 potassium. Phosphorus is nothing, so we put a 1. Oxygen is 4. And again, there's no coefficient here, but if there was a coefficient, imagine the coefficient was 5, then again, you would multiply everything by 5. So times 5, times 5, times 5, giving you 15 potassium, 5 phosphorus, and 20 oxygen. Okay, so we'll look at one more example, and here we have aluminum sulfate. So we see a subscript of 2 for aluminum, so 2 there, the formula is wrong. This should be a 3 over here, because aluminum is +3 and sulfate is -2. Crossover rule says we need 3 sulfate. So, but inside the bracket, there's no coefficient for, no subscript for S, so we put a 1, and there's a 4 for oxygen, so we put a 4. Now, outside the bracket, there's a little 3. So again, anything in the bracket is multiplied by 3. So we multiply the sulfur by 3, and we multiply the oxygen by 3. That gives us 2 aluminum, 3 sulfur, and 12 oxygen. Now, again, there's no coefficient right now, but if there were, if the coefficient, for example, were 2, then again, we would multiply everything by 2. So we would multiply the aluminum, the sulfur, and the oxygen by 2, giving us then 4 aluminum, 6 sulfur, and 24 oxygen. Okay, that's how to count atoms in a chemical equation, which is an important skill before you learn how to write and balance chemical equations.